Hello, it's Nick here from Vegans Be the Change. It's Sunday, the 17th of November, and I'm just doing a little roundup of the week's vegan news, or just over a week really. And I'll start off with Her Majesty the Queen, no less, who it's been announced that from now on, none of her dresses will have or outfits will have any more fur on them. They'll just have faux fur to the extent they need fur. Doesn't mean that she may not ever wear fur again because. There's some ceremonial robes that maybe they won't change. But from now on, the Queen has got into line with the society's trends and won't be wearing any fur anymore. So that's a good thing. And PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, said it was raising a glass of gin and dubonnet to celebrate this. So that's a cool thing. I think probably the most interesting story just recently came from Waitrose. It's done a food and drink report about the shopping habits of Britain. Well, perhaps you might say the middle classes in Britain, as Waitrose is a pretty middle class supermarket, but it has noticed a discernible trend towards a greater sense of kindness, more compassion and simplicity, and the people are spending more mindfully and are reducing their clutter. And in this, there's a discernible downturn in the amount of meat that's being bought. And vegan foods are on the up and up and up. I found it really interesting that the context in which that was phrased, and we seem to be going to a simpler lifestyle. So I found that was really good, and people are turning their backs on unnecessary packaging and so on and so forth. But it did make the point that Britain is tending towards a vegan diet, but it's obviously not quite committing to it, but it's moving in that general direction. As an aside, there was one other trend which I'd never heard of before. They called it Segans and Seganism. Well, it's vegans who are going to eat a little bit of sustainable seafood, in other words, mussels and things like that. Well, obviously, somebody doing that isn't a total vegan, but it's another categorization of the flexitarian trend. But anyhow, the Waitrose report makes very, very interesting reading. It really does. And society is definitely changing in its attitudes to food and to consumerism in general. There was a really, really extraordinary story. It's quite surreal in terms of animal activism. About there's an American lady called Alicia Day. She's 31 years old. She's from New York, and she rescued a pig who she named Jixt Pixy. So Jixt Pixy the pig. And Jixt Pixy was being advertised by a farm in Devon for obviously looking to somebody to take a pig away for slaughter. And she decided, she saw this advertisement, she travelled down from London to Exeter, bought the pig for £30 I think it was, and then promptly spent £400 getting the pig into a taxi all the way back to London. And interestingly, putting a pig into a taxi is illegal. But anyway, there we go. And she was then a site around Ealing and Southall where she would take the pig for a walk, take him to the park, took Jixt Pixy to Wagamama's and all sorts of things. And obviously it was a big, big thing in the streets there, people stopping, talking. It was quite a stir because you don't expect to see a pig being walked around with a lead and a collar around the suburbs of London. But anyway, she did this, and eventually things blew up. Her landlord found out about it, and she's been kicked out of her lodgings, which is, I don't suppose the landlord was too impressed with a pig living there. I'm sure it was a breach of the tenancy. But the RSPCA got involved, took the pig away, and the pig is now in an animal sanctuary in Kent. So the pig has been saved from slaughter, and Alicia is homeless. She's now being last seen in a hotel being bankrolled by her sister from California. But she says she has no regrets. There's a lot of people, a lot of children stopping, and she made the comment, if one animal has been saved, if one vegan meal more has been eaten as a result of this, it's all been worthwhile. I mean, it's amazing. It takes all sorts, and it's on the one hand it's kind of a surreal and slightly eccentric thing, but on another level, it was a very serious thing. But she obviously wasn't aware of the fact that pigs have certain needs, and certainly she's been absolutely criticised beyond belief by the RSPCA, and rightly so, because the pig obviously wasn't really being looked after properly. But it was an interesting story. And in terms of animal activism, one of the more surreal ones, as I've said, that I've come across recently. Then, not so long ago, Donald Watson, the legendary Donald Watson, who is really the first person on record to have coined the phrase vegan. He's one of the people that's co-established the Vegan Society. He has had a blue plaque in his honour put up in his former primary school in South Mexborough, in Mexborough in South Yorkshire. The 25 people were at the first meeting to form the Vegan Society, and it's now in its 75th anniversary this year. And he died in 2005, aged 95. He was in good health, and he was sprightly, he was doing a lot of walking, and he's clearly a great advertisement for veganism. And certainly when you read what he said about the conviction that he had when he discovered about dairy and what it entailed, he thought it was absolutely diabolical. And he took a stand, and it was inconvenient, but he took a stand based on what he thought was right. And he's certainly a very inspiring person. And anyway, so he's now has a blue plaque, and well-deserved, and very, very remarkable legacy, powerful legacy that he's left behind. There's another story that came out, a German laboratory near Hamburg called the Laboratory of Pharmacology and Toxicology. And not so long ago, there's some underground footage was put out by Cruelty Free International and Soko Tierschutz about the disgraceful way that the animals, and particularly monkeys, were treated in the laboratory. And it was quite shocking. It was brutal. But that was a few weeks ago. But what's happened just over a week ago was two women who worked in the laboratories, whistleblowers, have come forward and said that they have been party and privy to falsifying data, and they've put on a lot of pressure by the management to falsify data, and in some cases change the dosages that were given to rats, and in certain cases the rats were killed as a result of the dosages, and this was hushed up, and this was hidden from the clients that the animals had died. So it does beg the question, because a lot of people say that the results from animal testing are not transferable to humans because our physiology is so different. Well, there's no doubt about it that if the results have been faked, then the results are absolutely worthless. And there are and since that's happened, one of the places of this company has been shut down pending an investigation. It's quite a disgraceful story. Anyway, so that's that. That was in Germany. Another story that was quite interesting was that the Formula One has decided to go carbon neutral by 2030. Now, there's been a lot of Formula One's been in the vegan news, not for comparatively recently, because of Lewis Hamilton. He's just retained his world championship, and he's a very outspoken vegan. He's one of the producers of the Game Changers. He's very committed to his plant-based diet, but he's also very thoughtfully concerned about his carbon footprint. And now he's published a lot about this on his Instagram channel, and he has been ridiculed by many people as a hypocrite because they put him down because all you do is drive around the world, driving fast cars around in circles, and 21 venues a year. You're transporting tons and tons and tons of luggage everywhere. And Formula One, you could make a case: can we afford it in terms of its carbon footprint and so on, which is something in the region of 256,000 tons of, I believe that's the figure, of carbon emissions a year. Well, anyway, the sports governing body have come out with a commitment to be carbon neutral by the year 2030. And that will be a combination of not having plastic bottles at the racecourses, but more importantly, all the racetracks will be powered by energy efficient and sorry, I've lost the phrase, but sustainable and sustainable energy sources, and that there will be a system of travel efficiency we put in, and they'll be developing sustainable fuels, and that they'll be offsetting. They'll be offsetting, presumably planting trees and so on. But it's 11 years to carbon neutrality, and that is quite a goal for a sport that is really, really, you can only say that it's something. It's a sport of total consumption. So that's a big goal. And one of the things, of course, is they will be promoting healthy food. So I think what that means, reading between the lines, if you go to a Formula One Grand Prix in the future, you will be finding predominantly, if not exclusively, vegan food. And so, it certainly goes to support Lewis Hamilton's point of view. He did, as I said, he came in for a lot of criticism. Some people support him, like the four-time world champion Sebastian Vettel did. He wasn't supported by the two-time world champion Fernando Alonso. Take your pick. A lot of people thought he was a hypocrite. But as he said, he thinks deeply about these issues, and if you can, he was talking with Mercedes, and if they can replace all the leather in their cars to faux leather, then that's a big deal, and it makes a difference. So, the whole of the Formula One sport has been listening and paying attention, and is looking to make a change. So that's definitely something to be welcomed and to be watched. On the celebrity front, Moby, the musician, who's totally committed to veganism, he showed off on social media massive tattoos on both his arms, animal rights, right in your face, big capital letters. So you could say it was 12 tattoos, not one. But and he recently had a vegan for life on his neck, and seeing he's been vegan for over 30 years, he said at the time it's a fair bet. Anyway, his absolute commitment to animal rights is above and beyond. So that was a very interesting bit of celebrity news. Back to the dairy industry. In the United States, Dean Foods, the largest dairy producer in the United States, has just filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. It's an extraordinary thing. And it just shows the changing trends, the move away from dairy and the move towards plant-based milk. So for the largest dairy producer in the United States to file for bankruptcy, that is really a sign of the times. There's been a lot of reports not so long ago about how dairy and the beef industries are looking at effectively being bankrupt in, just over a decade's time. So this is maybe a harbinger of things to come. But there we are. That's Dean Food. And along that theme, Miyoko's Creamery, the plant-based dairy company, plant-based cheese company, founded by Miyoko Shina, very remarkable woman, dynamic entrepreneur. She's created a very, very successful company. She's just announced with Farm Sanctuary, Gene Bauer Farm Sanctuary, that they want to help a farm in California, a dairy farm, transition to plant-based agriculture. And this is a trend. A lot of dairy farmers in California are seeing the writing on the wall. They are voting with their feet. The oldest dairy farm in California is 125 years old. It announced very recently that it was transitioning to growing almonds. So anyway, Miyoko is offering their expertise to one farm, maybe there'll be more, to help them make that transition, and that they would invest a lot of research and development because they're looking to bring out more products and have a more base, and not just have everything from the same nut source. So that company is going places. And also, back to the celebrity front, Ellen DeGeneres and her wife, Portia de Rossi, have announced this week that they're investing a significant amount of money in Miyoko's Creamery. And that money will be used for research and development. And Ellen DeGeneres isn't, it seems, fully vegan, but she's absolutely committed to this change in agriculture and so on. And I think she might eat a little bit of dairy now, but not much. And not so long ago, she sent out a message to her 77 million Instagram followers. It was a video to eat less meat. And this is something really, this kind of power of celebrities with that kind of social media following, when the dairy industry and the meat industry are trying to hide some of the realities of what's going on in their factory farms and would prefer certain things to say secret. It's a losing battle when you're up against that kind of firepower. 77 million Instagram followers. Anyway, so Ellen DeGeneres is very, very committed to this. So they've made a big investment in that company, and they call it a company that's on a mission of compassion. Back to sport. The captain of the Australian Rugby League side, the Brisbane Broncos, called Darius Boyd, he watched The Game Changers, the documentary, and was very impressed by it, and has decided to go vegan, deciding it's going to give him an athletic advantage, an edge. And so he was trying to persuade some of his teammates to follow suit. And I think some of them were interested, but there was a lot of mickey taking and so on. And the more traditional meat-eating Aussies, maybe the bigger forwards, or they really like their meat. But this was a thing, and there were obviously a lot of people looking at it, and it gained a lot of traction in the press. And then a couple of days later, the coach who Darius had made watch the documentary came up with what was called in the Australian press a bizarre statement, close quotes, where basically he had to go on record saying the team were not going vegan. It wasn't in any way encouraged by the club, and that they had meat suppliers that they valued greatly. So I think reading between the lines, it does seem that there was a little bit of arm twisting there. And, the meat industry is very, very sensitive to this kind of publicity. Athletes saying that going vegan can give them an edge. The meat industry doesn't like this. So it was I thought the way that the announcement came out and the release about the valuing of the meat suppliers was very, very interesting. But there we go. So it's not a team. The Brisbane Broncos, one of the most successful rugby league sides, is not going vegan, but there's a little bit of controversy there. Galaxy Chocolate, owned by Mars, is just bringing out 3 vegan dairy chocolate bars. They're going to retail in England for £3. It's more than double the price of their other milk chocolate brands, but it's been made with a hazelnut paste, and that's now available as of tomorrow, will be available in Tesco's, and there's other places will be coming on board bringing it on. So there's a lot of vegans who love chocolate, and I'm sure that'll be very, very welcome news. And then finally, just wanted to round off this news roundup with the news that Thanksgiving dinner in the States, it's the end of November. Thanksgiving, it's, we don't really do it here so much in Britain, but it's a big thing. There was a report that suggested that some 30% of Americans would actually now be willing to consider having a traditional Thanksgiving dinner without turkey, a Thanksgiving dinner with plant-based food. And obviously it's the younger demographic by and large, but nevertheless, 30%, that's quite something. The day that we read that 30% of Britons are not going to be eating turkey Christmas, that will be quite something. And I suspect that day isn't that far off. But anyway, 30% of Americans, according to this research, it's quite something. So the times, they really are changing. So that's a roundup of the stories that we reported on in the last week or so. Thanks very much. If you have any comments, please put them down below, and we'll have links to the stories below. Thank you. Bye.